Hey guys and girls, gamers, nerds alike, and those who found this video by mistake. Welcome to our new show.
Here we look at games old and new, from character designs all the way to soundtracks. It's all here on Dusty Cartridges.
Two broken discs. We take you through all the games you love growing up with, as well as all the games you play today. He's Big Dave.
And he's Glenn.
And he's Adam. Before we get into it, remember to like, comment, and use that trigger finger and smack that subscribe button. And with that out of the way, let's clean off that disc, pick up the controller, and let's get on with this week's episode. So yes, this week we are talking Final Fantasy. Now, Final Fantasy as a whole. Now, basically, for myself, Final Fantasy VII was probably my introduction to the Final Fantasy games. Dave, probably the same for you as well?
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I mean, one of the first games I played was Final Fantasy VII. I know a lot of people say like that's where Final Fantasy started. I mean, it isn't, but
It definitely did for
Final
me.
Fantasy VII was where a lot of people first got into the game. Myself included, and yourself included, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the story itself was amazing. Now, on the team, obviously, Adam's not really a fan of Final Fantasy. So, just a brief overview. The Final Fantasy VII story is you're a soldier who becomes a mercenary, starts helping out a team called Avalanche to sort of like everyone calls them eco-terrorists. Would you agree with that, Dave?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Sort of eco-terrorists blowing up power
plants. They will blow up your hometown, but they'll do it with a smile.
You gotta love that happy-go-lucky attitude that they've got. But no, Final Fantasy VII, yeah. So you're a mercenary, Avalanche, and then you end up in your first area, which is like where you live, basically, and you blow the place up, and then you have to escape to save your own life. And then you start hunting down the man who trained you, basically, called Sephiroth. It's just...
I've heard of Sephiroth.
There's no doubt you've heard the soundtrack. Sephiroth! So
Dave probably played it so much.
I really have.
Dude,
so iconic.
I think we've been in the car and I just drove to the music going da 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 da.
One-winged angel.
But getting into Final Fantasy now, again, I do have Final Fantasy VII here at the side of me. I have it, I think, now on every console it's been released on. So PS1, they never launched it on the PS2, but they did come out on the PS3 because they released it as like a PS1 classic download. I've got it on my Vita. I've had it on the Switch when I had a Switch. It's on my PS4. I'm pretty sure I've got it on my phone at some point, and I was playing it on there as well. So it's sort of one of my all-time favorite games that you can't escape from, no matter. Even with the remake on the PS4 at the moment, that got me through lockdown 1.
It really did.
Without that, I may have lost my sanity. But Final Fantasy to you, Dave, sort of what did it mean to you growing up?
Well, I mean, it was such a big, it was like probably one of the first games that got me into RPGs, really. I mean, such a big, epic game. I mean, there's no way you could only, you could easily go through that game and just put, like you say, 100 hours into it. It's not, the size of the game. I mean, I know
that was just disc 1.
I know, but I mean, obviously with the remake, it's doing it in parts now. So obviously you get an introduction to Midgar.
So instead of 100 hours, £100 per day.
Well, pretty much, yeah. We've got to milk that cash cow for everything it's worth.
That was kind of the reason why I could never really get into Final Fantasy. Like you guys probably have noticed by now, like I have a very short attention span. And I just have never been able to keep my attention on something long enough to play that amount of hours, really.
It's worth
It's
it.
like,
I mean,
It is worth it.
it's one of them though. I mean, you'd be surprised how quickly it mounts up. I could happily just sit there, and then but before you know it, like you say, 24 hours has passed.
But that's the problem. Is like if I would have played it and then found out, it probably would be okay. But because I found out about the amount of time it takes before
it's put you off.
I wouldn't mind though, but I'm pretty sure the advert in the back of the game, and this is sort of like taken from the back of the PlayStation memory card, the essential purchase from for all PlayStation players. Try beating Final Fantasy VII without it. So it sort of tells you that it's going to be quite a while. I mean, it's 3 discs long. I mean, that tells you straight away.
Wow.
That tells you right away that it's going to take some time. I mean, I remember fondly sort of like coming home from school and things like that and sitting down and playing Final Fantasy VII. Now, I think this is actually my second copy of the game, because the very first one wasn't my own. A friend introduced me to the game, and he gave me his scratched copy. It was scratched, and I mean full on deep. You could run your fingernail through the scratch. It was that deep. He really didn't look after his discs. He said you'll get to a certain point and it'll just stop. Now I had back in the day, like most people did, a chip PlayStation 1, but at the same time I put like half a Lego man in the lid to keep the lid open, because when the disc wouldn't work, if it was scratched, it'd stop, start, stop, start. I'd just take the disc out and put the second disc in, because that was less scratched. But then the videos didn't quite make sense. So the game would run perfectly fine. But when you got up to like a cutscene, you'd have a cutscene from the second disc. And it wouldn't actually make any sense.
That drives me mad. I don't even know how you did that.
Like, it's like the point when you're leaving Midgar for the first time. And, you've got the big robot thing chasing you up the street. And then there's like a little video that plays. To me, up to that point, it was the weapon coming out of the ocean at Juno.
That'd actually drive me mad.
So originally playing it, the videos to me were completely out of sync.
This makes no fucking sense.
I remember seeing this thing come out and get shot in the face by a giant cannon. And I'm like, what? That's not right. I've just jumped off a bridge, not got shot in the face by something. But it was all new to me. Now, the one thing I want to ask you, Dave, obviously, because being the only major Final Fantasy fan here as well with myself, across sort of, because we want to talk about all of Final Fantasy as a whole, going back to as far as you can remember from 7 when you first played that up until like the most recent ones that you're playing today, out of everyone, who would you say your favorite character has been?
I mean,
it's a bit of a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
it is
when
a
you
tough
think
one.
about it, you've got to split it up across 15 titles.
To be honest, Cloud, it is between Cloud and Sephiroth. I know they're both from the same game, but they have always been. Those are 2 characters who left a big impact on me when I was younger. By far, like you say, yeah, they are definitely my favourite characters. I do like. I'm a big fan of some of the other characters as well. Like you say, the Final Fantasy X, you've got like Yuna.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, Waka, Tidus, they're all really, fun.
I like how you've avoided Lulu at all costs there. Adam, just type in on Google Lulu Final Fantasy X.
Let's say level.
Okay.
Need I say more?
I think that's the great thing, is they knew how to design characters across all.
Oh, definitely. That is one of the major things that drew me in.
Just Adam's face when he's looked at me, he's like, oh yeah, okay.
But like you say, it is one of the main things that drew me into Final Fantasy in the first place. The art style. I mean, I'm big fan of the Final Fantasy VII's art style. I mean, going into like Final Fantasy VIII, then they tried to make it a bit more realistic.
Yeah, because it had cars and things like that in Final Fantasy VIII, which was a bit different, especially from Final Fantasy VII.
Definitely.
Where you still got like an airship in 8, but 7 did focus. I mean, you did have the sand buggy, but it wasn't really a car. it was more of a tank, basically, wasn't it? I mean, that's one thing I'm going to look forward to see how they do with the remake.
Yeah,
is the vehicles,
and
especially like the chocobo racing as well. That's going to be fun to see. How they do at the high wind when we see that, you know, the remake. You know, they've opened up a whole new door because they've changed the style of the story as well, compared to, because I remember playing the remake of 7, and you get up to a certain point when you first meet Aerith, and then you've got all the echoes floating around her, and I was like, hang on a minute, this didn't happen originally. What the fuck is what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, the whispers. It's just like,
what the hell is even there?
What the hell?
But I mean, to be fair, like you say, bringing the whispers and stuff into it. I mean, I think on the the game designers behalf, it was a very clever way to do it. Whereas you're not, the way they are changing the timeline, and obviously the whispers are trying to keep the timeline on track with the original Final Fantasy VII, and obviously you got the characters trying to drift away from the original. So it was a very clever way, to set the new series of games up.
I suppose it's also helped keep it fresh because,
oh yeah, of course,
at the end of the day, I mean, I would happily play a full HD remake exactly the same as I've already played. But this gave you something new. Your characters were different. The story was a little bit different. I mean, the main plot was there, but you had extra bits. It was sort of like a director's cut, basically. You had like extra bits. You had newer characters that were never seen before in the original Final Fantasy VII. And I sort of enjoyed that.
I mean, it's one of them as well. Like with Sephiroth, I mean, in the original game, he was more like this big, they built up as this big like myth, character. It's just like Sephiroth. He was only a name, like he who shall not be named, the kind of thing. But I mean, in this one, he's introduced within like the first 10 minutes, and he's just kind of wandering around, around tormenting Cloud. He's just like, "Hi, did I mention I'm here?" It's like, I mean, to be fair, I wasn't a fan of that at first, but like the way they did it, throughout the game, it did work in the end.
The further you get on, you understand it, don't you?
You understand exactly, but I mean, and again, all the the whispers and that, it does come into it. So again, hats off to the game designers and the story writers. It was a very clever way of going about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Who's the character with the big ass sword?
Which one?
Cloud. it'll be either Cloud or Zach. We've both got the same sword.
The one that you see at every single Comic Con when you go to Comic Con.
Yeah, it'd be Cloud.
Blonde hair and big sword.
I have that sword in my shed. I would go and get it to show you guys, but it is raining and I'm not going outside in the rain. I mean, Dave's already seen it. I mean, I'll post a picture up at some point on like our socials where you can follow us.
Right there.
It's somewhere around here.
You don't need to tell the viewers that you've been showing me your sword. It's not like
in the shed as well.
Not that
Dave to the shed to show you
you're making it sound quite sinister.
Yeah, it's not that type of show, folks. You've definitely tuned into the wrong. For that kind of show, tune into the Northern Dreamers podcast. Got to plug it somewhere. You've got to plug it somewhere. I tell you what, Final Fantasy really sort of really drew me to it was Final Fantasy IX. I really enjoyed the storybook feel for a Final Fantasy, and they carried that over into sort of like Final Fantasy 12, I want to say, with you had Vaughn, Ash, and all that. You had a bigger open world, but again, it still kept that storybook feel. Now, with 7, I mean, I loved the story of Zidane, being basically being genetically engineered to be who he is, basically, in a way. Same with most of the characters, and it was all about each of the games have their own like running theme. Now, 8 never really appealed to me. I played it. It's not my favorite, but I can play it and still enjoy it. I just don't like the whole. I mean, if you've never played any of the Final Fantasies, Adam, it's a good job you haven't, because there are so many spoilers. It's like getting to the end of Final Fantasy VIII and finding out you were all orphaned at the same orphanage and you all forgot. I was like, that's a bit far-fetched. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do enjoy the game, but each of them tried something different. 7 tried equipping materia, which I enjoyed. It was a good system. It really worked. 8 then used the Guardian Forces junction ability. Wasn't a fan of that. But obviously, the whole thing as well, that 9 was made before 8.
Yeah.
that confused me. So, I mean,
have you seen Star Wars?
I was just about to say
yeah.
We're talking about the right franchise here.
But yeah, and as you've mentioned, 10, the birth of 10 on like the PS2, switching from sort of the PlayStation to the PS2.
They got all the way up to 10 on the PS2.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Bearing in mind, Final Fantasy 1 came out in 1987 on the NES.
Right, okay.
So we're going all the way back up until 6. They were all like on Nintendo from 1 to 6, from 87 to 97. Oh, it was about 96.
Yeah, it was about 96 or so, wasn't it?
They all came out on Nintendo, and then it moved over to Sony for the PlayStation, because they found that working on the new 3D engine that Sony were using, they found that they could design the character a bit better. Granted, they looked like Lego figures. They didn't have a mouth, and they had like big block arms. It was 7 was definitely sort of graphically the worst on the PlayStation 1. Well, character design, when you actually play as the character, but when you got to the cutscenes, it was just so smooth and so nice.
Well, I think that is another thing, isn't it? With the game, it just shows you how strong the storyline was, and the soundtrack and other things. Because, like you say, obviously, if you did play it now, like the original one, like Aida'd probably throw up because we've both got like animation degrees and things like that. So you can probably appreciate it to some extent, but like you say, the graphics are pretty bad and they've not aged well.
No.
But like you say, like myself and Glenn, I mean, we could still happily play the original one,
definitely.
just because the story is so.
I think it's not just the story though; it's the nostalgia as well from it.
Yeah.
It just sort of brings back those good times of not having to pay bills. You could come home from school and actually sit down and play your games. Now you come home from work, you got to cook tea, you've got to clean, you got to get yourself ready for work tomorrow. None of this. Oh, your mum goes, you know what? You go and play your games. I'll make the tea for you. I don't get that. I don't get that anymore. I miss those days. I liked being able to come home, sit down and play my games and relax. It just doesn't happen anymore. So any chance that I can get when I'm not doing anything, if I've got a bit of free time and I'm not playing anything that's quite new, or there's nothing out at the moment that's really enticing me, I will always go back to 7. And the great thing is, where I work, it is rather quiet. So I'm not saying it's, I hardly see customers. I've been taking my Vita in and I am playing it bit by bit when I'm not doing anything. So it's nice to still be able to play Final Fantasy VII while at work.
You better hope your employer doesn't really see this one.
Your boss listens to these podcasts.
The boss listens to the podcast. She doesn't know about the show. This is all new. She won't be told, and she doesn't care. I saw her playing on Angry Birds the other day. It's fine. I can play Final Fantasy.
If you're going down, you're taking everyone down.
The whole thing that's baffling me is with the sequels to the exact game, because all the games aren't sequels to each other. They're all their separate entity. So 8 doesn't follow on from 7 in any way, shape, or form. There'll be odd notes to it and mentions to it, but that's about it. Now, Final Fantasy X was the first one that did a sequel with 10-2.
Oh God, dress space.
Yeah.
Need I say more?
Oh God.
It's not 11, 10-2.
Yeah, so I mean, like, speaking of 10, I mean, it was such a strong storyline again, like 7. You had really, strong characters. And I mean, to be honest, I do have a lot of fond memories of playing 10. I mean, graphically, it was definitely one of the better games. I mean, I'd never seen graphics like that at one point, when on the PS2, and I thought it was a really strong game.
Says a lot. I mean, they're a lot better than what you see in Minecraft today. So,
well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, and again, cutscenes and everything, and I mean,
it's
again,
just
back to
the opening cutscene when you start playing Blitzball at the beginning of the game.
I mean, yeah, that was amazing.
Just that
absolutely
scene.
Amazing. I was blown away by that.
I mean, I'd love to see that sort of remastered on the PS5. I know it's on the PS4 and I know it's on the PS3, but seeing it on the PS5 with the ray tracing and things like that, especially the opening scene where the light hits his face and then the water
when he jumps up, when he's in the air, when he goes in the air,
the whole thing. I reckon that on a newer generation console would look phenomenal. Amazing. It'd be brilliant. It really would. Now, I really love 10. 10-2.
Yeah, that's up to me. The thing with 10-2, it's like I see what they were trying to do, but it was too like a sitcom. They tried to make you get what I mean? Like they tried to make it into like some kind of like weird sitcom thing, and
especially
it was just...
like with the story of 10, where obviously there's the sin and it comes back every so many years.
Yeah.
And I like how it was focused around a religion, basically, that people were forced to, they had to be part of this religion, no matter who they were, apart from you had like little functions that wasn't like the Al Bhed, who sort of did, but in their own way of thinking about it. And it was very, I think it was very clever how they worked it, in regards to like the technology being like forbidden technology. You're not really meant to use it. This is the whole reason that our civilization was destroyed originally. And, it was, I don't know, it was just something about it that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, but that was the thing, like you say, with 10-2, though, that was what kind of let it down a bit for me. It was just, they got rid of all that. Like, it was, the 10 was very deep, like storyline and everything. With 10-2, it was just like a bit of a joke, and it's kind of, girl, it was that kind of like the power of friendship and all that crap. And it was just basically like you got the girls transforming like Sailor Moon characters and all this. It was like, what the hell am I watching here?
Yeah.
It's like, where's all the the plot and everything gone? It's literally just we use the power of love to vanquish evil. So it's like I've watched enough anime over the years, and I get it, but bloody hell, it was just I wasn't expecting it.
No, definitely not. Again, though, sort of moving on now. 12 sort of reignited all that, because 11 was one that was PC only, wasn't it, and things like that, if I remember correctly.
Online,
I didn't really play much of 11, so I don't have an opinion on it, just for the fact that I'm not a PC gamer in any way, shape, or form. The only thing I will ever play on PC is if I'm remote playing to my PlayStation or Solitaire. Those are the only things that I really play.
Sims?
I even play Sims. I play it on the PlayStation because I had it on there. But it never sort of... I mean, I bought it. Don't get me wrong. I bought it and had intentions of getting it, and then when I had to find out you had to pay a subscription fee to play it, I just was like, nah, I can't bother that.
Sounds like 14 all over again.
And then 12 came out, and again on the PS2, it sort of pushed the PS2 to its limits. It really did. Visually, it was really good. I enjoyed the story of it, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure it's the only one I've not completed.
I'll agree with that. To be honest, I never completed 12.
I got to the end and I just never finished it. And for the life of me, I don't know. I think I discovered girls at that point.
It's one of them, though. I mean, to be honest, with 12, they did something a little bit different with the the battle system and
it was
like that.
More open plan game, wasn't it?
So it wasn't like you take turns.
It wasn't. Really, the active time battles and things like that.
Exactly. So. To be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of that. So, like you say, 12 in general, I wasn't the biggest fan of.
I enjoyed it. It was just the thing that irritated me was the quickenings. They were very. They wasn't I was a bit. They were all right, but no. And it gave me some very weird thoughts. The giant rabbit girl. It just confused me, and
it turned you into a furry.
Confused me in so many ways. Adam, if you're looking up Final Fantasy 12, there, look for Fran. She's about a 12-foot rabbit woman.
Okay. Okay.
And he's doing it straight away.
Okay. Let's do this. Okay.
This episode's just been us going, go and look at this character. Look at the design for this character.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm quite sold, actually.
I mean, what was your opinion on, when they went to 13? I mean, that was quite a big jump again, really.
I loved 13 so much. I think 13 itself, the one game, was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I liked the new system that they had. I liked how you got like one summon per person, which was a nice little twist, and the ones that they brought into it. It was nice as well, sort of. It wasn't the only thing that irritated me was it wasn't open world.
Yeah,
like
most of all, very linear, wasn't it? Like you go here, you have to go here.
Yeah. You had like one track to follow, no matter what you did. Apart from when you got to one area and you had like a mass field to walk around and bits to explore. True. But it took a lot of the elements that I loved from Final Fantasy and took them away, but also introduced new ones that I've fallen in love with now. I mean, I think the story itself, I really enjoyed it. I know it got slated. It
really didn't do well, did it?
No, it really didn't. But I think to me, Lightning as a character, she is one of my all-time favorite characters. She was very much, she had like the passion and the sort of meh about her like Cloud did. Yeah. So it was like she
pretty much the female Cloud, wasn't she?
She was, yeah, she really was. But at the same time, she, her love for her sister and, looking to save her and things like that. Again, that sort of, it gave her, it made her feel human almost. She actually had passion to something. And that's what I enjoyed. The story was very different to any of the Final Fantasies we've already played. And then they ruined it by putting Leona Lewis on it at the end of the song. I mean... Why?
Well, why? It didn't really fit. No, it didn't really fit.
But I can't say anything because I'm pretty sure it's on my playlists. And only because it was on Final Fantasy is the only reason. But at the same time, no,
it's because he's secretly loves. Don't let him fool you.
Definitely. But the thing that confused me is they made 2 sequels to that. Now, 13-2 wasn't that bad.
I honestly, I quite enjoyed 13-2. I did actually quite, obviously it's got the time, going through the time.
Yeah, it was, again, it was different. They chose something different. I enjoyed it. I did complete it because I remember fighting like a big 3-headed dragon thing at the end, and it pissed me off so much. I literally threw that was a rage quit moment. I threw the controller so much on that. It just irritated me. But then they released Lightning Returns.
Yeah, Lightning Returns. I honestly, I never even played that. I never even played that one. It's one of them, like, 13 was good. I enjoyed it, but again, enjoyed 13-2, but it lost its appeal after a while.
It did, yeah. I mean, I got it. I played it. I liked Lightning. She is, like I say, one of my favorite characters. But I don't know, just something about that game just did not appeal to me at all. No. It didn't feel like a Final Fantasy game.
No, it's just again a cash cow, wasn't it? It was just
it really was. But then it sort of moved on. Then you had 14, which was the online one. I don't think I completed that.
Well,
how far did we get, Dave? No, it's an MMO. It was just. It was.
I mean, how long's 14 actually been out? I mean, 14's been out for.
It was on the PS. Now, it's on the PS3. They moved it to the 4, and now they've just released the beta for the 5. So
it's such a like you say, they're constantly adding stuff to it as well, aren't they? So
yeah,
I mean,
Adam's had enough. Is gone.
Clearly, we're winning him over. And I'm out. Drops the microphone and leaves.
You promised we would be talking about games, not just the games you would like.
I mean, what was your opinion on 15? As I mean, that was pretty much just a food simulator. That's the best way I can describe 15. I mean, the fact that they could, the fact that they could take like a piece of garbage and a hat and turn it into a beautiful succulent meal. It's like
succulent Chinese meal.
I was enjoying a succulent Chinese meal.
This is democracy.
You know what, right? I enjoyed 15. I didn't like the ending. I'm gonna hold my hands up with that. I hated the ending. But the actual game itself, it was a proper bromance game.
Yeah, it really was.
All it was just 4 mates on a road trip, and then 1 minute one loses his eyesight. Some guy randomly just takes you fishing in the middle of the night. It's just...
it was very like that was kind of the thing that I got with the game as well. It was just very like, what the fuck are we doing? We're just going for a drive. We're just mates going for a drive. I mean, and we're cooking some food.
Cooking food, listening to Florence and the Machine singing "Stand By Me." It was, yeah.
To be fair, the 15 games in, they might want to relax for just one of them. Just let them have a break, man.
Well, oh god! But I mean, what are you looking forward to? What's coming next with Final Fantasy? I mean, we've had the trailer for 16, which looks like they've taken the concept of 14 and made it into a single player game. And also we've got the rest of Remake.
Yeah, Remake too.
Ever they decide to bring that out.
Realistically, I don't think. Hopefully, it won't be that long. I'm hoping it won't be that long because
Dave, your kids will have kids.
True. I proper jinx myself now.
By the time we see the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, honestly, your son will have his own children. You're going to be a granddad.
I'll switch it on and I'll just be
like... You'll get to the end of it and you'll just be like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be alive for part 3.
Well, to be fair, they already hurt me with the whole Yuffie DLC thing.
Oh,
it's just like,
yeah.
But I spent a shitload of money, buying the game, and then I had to buy a PS5 just to get the DLC of Yuffie. It's like, why?
And as we've said on the podcast as well, the Northern Dreamers, I would happily sell someone a lung so I can go and get a PS5 just so I can play that bit. I wouldn't mind though, but the Yuffie chapter's not even out yet, and I don't even think it's going to be that long.
No, probably not.
It's probably going to be like 30 minutes long, but still,
probably.
I would. Is it anywhere that I can sell my sperm? I'll go and do that.
I'll bring the jam jars.
Yeah, bring the jam jars. Bring blue and red toilet roll as well, just to be on the safe side. And once we fill the jam jars up, Callum's cup, it'll do. But I mean, I am looking forward to see what they do with Final Fantasy going forward. It is a game no matter when it comes out, I will always buy it. I will always play it. Will always be definitely one of my favorite collection of games. I have gone back and played the older stuff. I've played it on like the Game Boy. I've played it on the Game Boy Advance. I've used emulators, played it on PlayStation, PS2, anywhere that it comes out, I will get it, as best I can. Mm-hmm. And I am looking forward to see what they do with the second half of Final Fantasy VII. I hope they bring the dolphin mini game into it. That bit would just be so surreal to see a dolphin throw you about 50 feet in the air.
Well,
so you can land on
to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me considering they basically turned half of Final Fantasy Remake 7 Remake into like Dance Dance Revolution.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that to be honest. I enjoyed it. I fully enjoyed it.
I thought they would have cut the whole cross-dressing scene out with the way the world is today. But
exactly.
They kept it in and they did it so well.
They did it well.
I'm hoping it didn't piss anybody off because I really enjoyed it. So I mean, it's still there. They've not said, "Oh, we've had to launch an update to remove it." But no, I mean, granted, it took some bits out. You don't have to go and hide in a room full of men and get railed by them all, but like Cloud did in the original Final Fantasy VII. I'm pretty sure we said we're going to keep this like family friendly.
Let's tone it down a little bit.
Tone it down. All right. We'll mark this one definitely not for kids.
Oh, it's like after you said that, I was like, I'm getting it. I'm sold. Like,
I've got a copy if you want to borrow it.
To be honest, the Final Fantasy game, it is something like, because obviously it is so popular and everyone who plays it, like I've never heard anyone slag it off, like who's actually played the games. So it's something that I'd like to get into. I just can't dedicate that much time of my life into doing it. I just don't have the time anymore to do it.
It is a lot. You've got to sink
just
a lot of time.
Just a quick question. I mean, if you were to try and get into it, which one would you start from? Would you want to go back to one of the older ones? Or
the question to you guys, like, what game do you think I should start with? One day you go, you know what, I'm going to fucking do it.
I mean, to be honest, I think probably I would say remake is a good one.
Remake,
remake
7. Because it's
the one that's out on
backwards.
Xbox One.
It will be soon.
Series X, and the PS5.
Yeah. So 7 remake. Like I say, part 1 is out currently on PS4. It's an exclusive, but it is coming over to Xbox. I just don't know when. I think because obviously I believe that
there is one on. Is it not one on Xbox?
Yeah, there is, but I think it's 15.
Right. Okay.
I think that's the one that's on there at the moment because that was launched on both. I do believe that 7 is coming out, but they haven't announced when because Sony only had like a 1-year deal and the year is up. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I'd say go to 7 remake because it is a great introduction point for new fans as well. And for older fans like me and Dave, we've enjoyed it. It's very different. And I think it sort of after I played it, it made me want to go back and play the original, to see where things had changed and what was different. And the fact that I managed to get out of Midgar within like 2 hours instead of it taking me 5 days. So, and that was in lockdown, playing it all day, every day, doing nothing but play Final Fantasy VII. But yeah, I think that's about as far as we can go with Final Fantasy for today.
Yeah, for now.
Oh, it's not. I know that you two could go on.
Oh, we could go on for hours. We could go on for hours.
We could go on more about the soundtracks.
There's so much.
Nobuo Matsu is a friggin' genius.
Oh, I think that me and Dave will needs to do a part 2 episode where it's just me and Dave just going, so Final Fantasy
5 hours long.
Never know. We'll start a Patreon and just me and Dave will just do like a Final Fantasy chat on there. Have a SpongeBob moment where it comes up as 4 days later. Me and Dave still going, and that's just on 7. But yeah, remember, if you haven't already, to like, comment, and subscribe, and even tell us what games you want us to look at in future episodes.
You can also check us out on November Dreamers podcast. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and even here on YouTube.
Don't forget to tune in next week. And until then, I've been Adam.
I've been Big Dave.
And I've been Glenn. See you next time on From Dusty Cartridges to Broken Discs.
See, no, we can put the Teletubbies in there.